The Biden DOJ, the Merrick Garland DOJ, has been really going after activist pro-lifers. And in a recent arrest, they've arrested 11 pro-life activists and charged them with violating the so-called FACE Act. The FACE Act is the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act. It was a law that passed and basically said that people cannot block or interfere with the provision of reproductive health care, which is basically abortion. And these pro-life activists, I mean, some of them, of course, just stand outside a clinic with signs, but there are others that are more activists, that their job or their goal is to talk people out of getting an abortion. Now, this is not to say that they commit any kind of violence. On the contrary, what they're trying to do is sort of disrupt the functioning of the clinic by using a human blockade. And by the way, these are tactics picked directly out of the civil rights movement. And number two, try to talk to people who are heading in to get an abortion and persuade them not to. So that's their goal. Now, in 2021, a group of pro-life activists did a blockade of an abortion clinic in Joliet, Tennessee. They obviously thought they were doing something good, and they broadcast it on Facebook. This was a kind of a live action, as they call it, and now a whole bunch of these people. In fact, some of them, a couple of them are young, but one of them, Eva. Edel is 87 years old. She was part of it. She's been arrested. So you've got all these people who are arrested, and supposedly they're arrested for blocking people from providing reproductive health care. By the way, this carries stern penalties, up to 11 years in prison, fines of up to $250,000. I had reported the previous week about the case of a Catholic father named Mark Houck, who had been arrested in a very similar manner. An FBI raid on Mark Houck's house, and he was accused of, he has been charged with 2 counts of shoving a reproductive healthcare worker. Now, as I look a little more closely at the case, I begin to realize that this case is extremely questionable on 2 counts. One, even though Mark Houck is accused of 2 counts of shoving this worker at a clinic, it turns out that he shoved the guy once. In other words, the guy apparently came up into his face, was yelling at Mark Houck's son. Mark Houck pushes him. The guy goes down. He falls down. He's not apparently seriously hurt. And we know this because he filed a court claim against Mark Houck, and the court claim was basically dismissed because there was, you can almost say, no harm done. This was just an argument among 2 guys. Nevertheless, in comes the FBI, and they're accusing Mark Houck of 2 counts of assault. So where's the second count? Well, it turns out that this guy now claims that he was shoved a second time. Now, he never claimed that the first time. So this appears to be a manufactured or invented or remembered, there was a second shove. And so it's going to be interesting to see how the government tries to prove this sort of second case of assault. But the more important point I want to make here is that the FACE Act is all about preventing patients, and of course patients here means women who want abortions, from being able to get these abortions. Now, when this reproductive worker came up to Mark Houck, was he escorting? He claims to be an escort in the sense that his job is to escort these women to get their abortions. But at that particular time, he was escorting no one. In fact, he just came out of the clinic and began to enter into this altercation with Mark Houck, which is another way of saying that Mark Houck does not seem to have violated the FACE Act. He was not interfering with anybody getting reproductive health care. He was standing there. Out comes a worker who argues with him. Somebody gets shoved once, it seems. And based on that, you've got this guy facing years in prison, facing financial ruin. This is just a complete abuse of the system of justice. In fact, the lower court looked at it and saw no merit to it. And so the feds are like, you know what? And I was talking to Debbie about this, and she was like, you know what? This is just revenge for the Supreme Court's decision in the Dobbs case. I think that's really the best way to look at it. They're bitter about the judicial verdict. There's nothing they can do about it. And so they're taking it out on these pro-life activists.